Om. 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 Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahma Vidvaram Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yatkrapatamam Vande Paramananda Madhavam Paramananda Madhavam. All right. Let us read now the verses that we covered. We will read 53, 54, and 55. Okay? Shruti vipratipanna te yada sthasyati nischala samadhavachala buddhi tada yogamavapsyasi. Arjuna uvacha Sthitaprajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava stitadih kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta kim. Shri Bhagavan uvacha prajahati yada kaman sarvan parthamanogatan atman yevatmana tushtaha stitaprajnastadochyate. Okay, so we are in a very, very beautiful and important portion of Bhagavad Gita, verses 55 to 72. They are 18 verses. They are called Sthitaprajna Lakshana, the indicators of a being of steady wisdom. Now, before we go forward, I'll just clarify a few things from last week. Some questions were there about steadiness in knowledge. Now, we all know that the jnana sadhana, the sadhanas to gain knowledge, or also known as antaranga sadhana, are shravana, manana, and nididhyasana. A question was asked, and can even come to our minds, does shravana, manana, nididhyasana, do they happen all together, or do they happen one after each other? So it is like this. They can happen all in one day. In one day, I can be listening to the scriptures, shravana. I can be reflecting on the scriptures also, thinking about it, just, chewing on it. I can be doing that. And then in the evening, maybe I can sit down quietly and contemplate upon it. So all can happen in one day. Yes, that is there. But please understand that in the beginning stages, the focus must be shravana. In the beginning stages of jnana sadhana, the focus must be really listening very clearly, because we should get that message. If we don't get that message, what will we reflect upon? Our reflection will go wrong. So in the beginning, the focus should be attentive listening with a single pointed mind at the feet of a teacher in a systematic method. As we progress, the focus then must be mananam, wherein I listen and I also focus on reflecting. So a lot of my time will go on thinking about what was said, seeing how it can be applied to my life, seeing if I saw this message in another text and does it align with each other, does it not? So the focus becomes manana. Or if there's some kind of doubt, what is the doubt that I have and where can I look to clarify it? Then as the seeker evolves, the focus becomes nididhyasanam, or dwelling and contemplating on the knowledge. And this dwelling and contemplation was explained last week. What happens is, as the knowledge now becomes clearer, the focus becomes to just dwell on it, whether it's even your listening will be nididhyasana, because it's the same message, but it's just being said in a different way. And maybe some things might even become very clear in that way. So listening, discussing with each other, even when I'm walking, I bring it to the mind, or when I'm doing other things, I bring it to the mind. And definitely when I'm sitting quietly, it comes in my mind. So that kind of thing is called nididhyasana. When a seeker is in the stage focusing on nididhyasana, everything pretty much becomes nididhyasana, because you already heard what the central message of the scriptures are, and you already know that knowledge is the way, and you're very, very clear about it. So then it's just dwelling in it. And the more we dwell on it, the firmer the knowledge gets. So this is the answer to the question, do they come all together or are they one after the other? So the focus is one after the other, but definitely in my life, all of them can be there all together. But the focus would be different depending on my stage of seeking. Then another question was asked, what if I want to practice jnana sadhana, the means for knowledge, shravana, manana, nididhyasana, but my life is in such a way that I have so many duties, I have so many responsibilities to take care of, that I don't have that time that I want to be able to invest in this. See, fixing the outer circumstances is never a seeker's responsibility or goal. Our main focus as a seeker is to fix inside, because what is internal, it resembles what is external. When the mind is very clean and pure, the house will be very clean and pure. When the mind is very orderly, very organized in its thought process, our home, our surroundings will be very organized. When our mind is so clear about what our goals are, what we want to do, our work, life, whatever we're engaged in, those goals will be so clear. And at the same time, when our mind starts to become more introverted, outside people will also notice that, and they will give us that time and space. So a seeker's question is never, when are my duties going to vanish, or when will people, sort of be independent? It doesn't make sense to focus on all the outer circumstances, because we cannot control them. But when a seeker focuses on the inner self, the inner mind, what happens is the outer resembles the inner. And the inner, we have some control. We have much more control than we have in the outer. So why not focus on what we can control? So this is how we see this jnana sadhana, because I'm sure, as the seekers get more serious in this study of the Gita, this is what you would want to focus on, because who would not want to be Sthitaprajna, as we are seeing, right? So that is the answer to those questions. Now, we come to the topic of Sthitaprajna, and Arjuna asks this question in verse number 54, what is this description of this Sthitaprajna? And it says also, he asks three distinct things. How does the Sthitaprajna speak? How does the Sthitaprajna sit? And how does the Sthitaprajna engage in the world? So these three questions are now taken up in the following verses. And last week we spent a good amount of time just understanding what a Sthitaprajna is, so that I won't go into detail. If you need that detail, you can review last week. But today we're going to really move forward. Now, in these verses, the root of a Sthitaprajna, the root, what makes a Sthitaprajna is in verse 55. How does a Sthitaprajna speak? That will be in verses 56 to 57. How does a Sthitaprajna sit? That will be in verses 58 to 63. And how does a Sthitaprajna interact with the world? 64 to 71. So we will see the verses accordingly. And where we left off last week was in verse 55, which we said is the moola, or the root. What is the root of a Sthitaprajna? In verse number 55, Lord Krishna says, Prajahati yada kaman. When sarvan kaman, all desires, prajahati, are cast off. And where are these desires? Manogatan, they're in the mind. Then what happens? Atmani, in the self, eva atmana tushtaha. One is satisfied by the self, in the self. That person is called Sthitaprajna. Tada Sthitaprajna uchyate. So the root of a Sthitaprajna, why a Sthitaprajna is able to behave the way that they're able to behave, is because they have this desirelessness arising from the contentment in the self. This is the basis to what we call nishkamata, desirelessness arising from the contentment in the self. And last time we spoke about what desire is. We said that desire is a thought in the mind, and the nature of that desire thought is that every desire is because we want to be happy, right? We want a good career because we want to be happy. We want a good family because we want to be happy. Every desire is nothing but the desire to be happy. Any desire, whatever we have, it's only the desire to be happy. And let's say I desire to be with a person because they make me happy. But the minute they make me sad, I don't want that person anymore. So the desire is not for the person, the desire is for happiness. Why that desire comes? Because that desire comes out of a sense of incompleteness. We identify with the body, mind, and intellect. We feel that we're incomplete, and therefore we seek something else to be complete, or someone else to be complete. And that is why desire comes. It comes out of ignorance. So this is desire. Now the question comes, so what do you mean? Does it mean that this wise person doesn't have any desire? So the answer to the question is, a wise person definitely has desire. Because we need desire to move about, right? Just to act, to engage in any action, we need some kind of desire. But here's the difference. The desire arising from ignorance is an ignorant person's desire. Desire arising from fulfillment is a wise being's desire, right? Their desire, it's arising from fullness or fulfillment. What do you mean? You see, for the body to function, for the body to do what it has to do, certain things have to be taken care of. So yes, once Gurudev, somebody asked Gurudev Does a wise man eat? Does he sleep? And Gurudev says, of course he does, right? So this desire to, of course, there'll be a desire to eat. There'll be a desire to sleep. There'll be a desire to walk, to move about, to sit quietly. Of course, those desires will be there. But the difference is that desire is not arising out of the notion that I am the ego. It's not arising from that. Our desires in ignorance are, I am the ego. I am this limited ego. Therefore, I seek this world to be so incredibly happy. Their desire is not because of their association with the ego. They don't have that anymore. They understand that the ego is false. So if there's a desire to eat, to drink water, whatever, to exercise, it is that desire of the falsified ego. It has absolutely nothing to do with them. And there is no adhyasa, there's no superimposition between the self and the ego. There is none. That desire is not arising out of ignorance. So what kind of desires will this wise being have? It is said that they will have 3 kinds of desires. This comes very beautifully in Panchadashi. They're called Ichcha, Parecha, and Anicca. What kind of desires will arise? Number 1 is Ichcha. Ichcha is how their vasanas are, that's what desires will arise. If they've spent their whole lives eating a certain kind of food, the desire for that food will arise. It's not coming out of ignorance. It's very natural. What else arises from them? What is called parecha. Parecha means other people's desires. Sometimes jnanis, they fulfill other people's desires. And especially Ishvara Ichcha, what we call the desire of Ishvara, is fulfilled by a jnani. What we call Guru Agnya, the instructions of the Guru are fulfilled by a jnani. So the desires of God, the desires of service to society, people's requests, the desire of the Guru, all of that is fulfilled by the jnani. Again, it's not coming out of ignorance, the sense that I need it to be complete. The jnani has no need whatsoever. It is that desire of other people that they're fulfilling. And there's also what you call anicca. Anicca means that even if there's a desire that they're not interested in fulfilling, but people ask them, or people, that plead with them, and they just do it, knowing full well that it's not them who's going through all of this. It is that falsified ego. It's that falsified ego that's acting throughout this world. It's a false ego engaging in false desires. So for a jnani, for a Sthitaprajna, it's a false ego engaging in false desires, and it's a false play in the world. There is no sense, there is no even thought that I will become happy by the fulfillment of these desires. There's no such thought. For an ignorant person, it's a real ego. They take the ego to be very real. They take the ego to be the self. It is the real ego engaging in the real world. They take the world to be so real, engaging in this real pursuit. So for an ignorant person, there's a lot of weight. If they get something they want, they're so incredibly happy. But if they don't, they're so incredibly bummed out, because remember, it's real. But for the Sthitaprajna, it's just a play. It's a false ego interacting with a false world. So this is how desires are seen. It's not coming out of ignorance. And what kind of desires? Based on how their vasanas were. It's the service of the world, service of society. It is the demand of Ishvara, the demand of the Guru, and it is said that Ishvara works through them. So they can serve in the world and work in the world with such a lightness. it is said that Lord Krishna is Sthitaprajna. And Lord Krishna, how you see him, his crown is a peacock feather. What is that? He carries the whole weight. He rules the kingdom of the world, but he carries the whole world, and for him it's light as a peacock feather. That is the significance, because to him it's all just a play. So now the question comes, why is this, how is this Sthitaprajna, how are they able to be in that knowledge? How are they able to just see this whole world as false and understand that the ego is false? Atmani eva atmana tushtaha. Because they revel in the joy of the self. They revel in that joy. So once they revel in that joy, what is the world to them? And what is the ego to them? They are in a higher form of bliss, or I guess the nature of bliss, you can say. The tragedy is that we think that we know what it takes to be happy. We think that. But actually, in the maybe 40, 50, 60 years, how many ever years we've lived, do you know that we have never experienced pure happiness? Never. Just pause for a moment. Think about it. We have never experienced pure happiness. Whenever, something is about to come, we're excited, we're happy, but then we're a little bit worried. How's it going to be? How's everything going to happen? Is it going to be okay? So we're happy, but we're still a little bit worried. And in the middle of it, we're happy that we're experiencing it, but we're afraid that, we're going to lose it soon, or it's going to end soon. And when that happiness ends, we become very sad. Now it's gone. When a child comes to the world, no doubt we are very happy, but also worried. How are we going to do this? How am I going to be a parent? Is it going to be okay? I don't even know what's going to happen. Whether a grandparent or a parent, how is it going to be? In the middle, when raising the child or the children, there is lots of joy. But it's mixed also. Lots of worry. Will this happen? Where is my child? They did not call. They did not do this. Lots of worry also. In the end, when the child has to go, and leave, lots of sadness. Happiness, little bit that now they're being independent, but sadness. I just brought the example of a child because all of you would know. But this is the truth. We have never experienced pure happiness. Never, never, ever. With anything. It's always laced with worry, or laced with fear, laced with anxiety. It's laced with all of these things. And so we think we know what happiness is, but the sad truth is we have not experienced it. And the happiness also that we experience is fleeting. We all know this. It's fleeting. And it depends on a certain circumstance or a person or an experience. If this happens, then I will be happy. If everything goes well with our Thanksgiving dinner, I will be happy. Isn't it? That if everything goes according to my plan, I will be happy. Our happiness becomes very conditional. And in being conditional, we set ourselves up for sorrow because not everything's going to go the way we want it to go. And then the happiness that we experience also, it takes a lot of effort, right? I mean, how much people work to get 1 week off, right? Oh, work, and then they get that 1 week off. And then again, work, you get that 1 week off. For Thanksgiving dinner, everybody now is going to cook. 4 or 5 hours in the kitchen, everybody will cook. For half an hour, the meal is gone. You're like, what? You know, so much effort to cook, and then the meal in half an hour is gone, and then so much effort to pack it up and clean. There's a lot of effort. So this kind of happiness, sure, it is pleasurable, but you know, it's not long term. It's not sustainable. How long can we keep doing this? The joy of a Sthitaprajna is it's permanent. It's permanent. And it is pure, because it's not dependent on the illusion of pleasure. It's dependent on the source of joy. It is right here. It is based on the source of joy. It's not on the product of, it's not on some illusory thing. It's in the source of joy. And that also, it's infinite. It's infinite, and it's even effortless. They don't have to do anything to be in that joy, because you are that joy. They don't have to do anything. They just revel in it. No work required, no efforts required, nothing required. They just remain there. That is what they have. They have this beautiful abidance in the self. That's called Sthitaprajna. And you know, how to understand this, I'll give you a very gross example, and then a little more example, and you can understand. Let's say, you know, you went to India, right? You went to India, and in India you went to one stall in the side street, and they were selling pani puri, right? And pani puri, and it's like maybe 5 rupees or something, and they'll give you like nice 3 or 4, and it's mineral waters, it's Bisleri, so you're not worried, and you're just nicely enjoying that pani puri, and you're reveling in it because it's so good. It's so incredibly good. And then you come to somewhere like New York City, and you go to this upscale, high-tech restaurant, and you know, there's pani puri on the menu, and you're like, oh wow, okay, let's order it. And it's $5. And it's $5, maybe you get like 1 pani puri, right? You get 1, and it doesn't taste at all like what it tastes in the streets in Mumbai. It doesn't taste like that. And you're like, this? I came for this? This doesn't even compare to the pani puri wala in, you know, in Mumbai. It doesn't even compare. That's the way a Sthitaprajna feels. You're giving me this? This doesn't even compare to the bliss that they revel in. Doesn't compare. As we grow deeper in the spiritual path, our bliss also gets subtler. You know, the bliss of watching a high-powered action movie, there's a bliss in that. But when we grow, there's a bliss in a satsang, a little deeper. Or we like this rocking disco music, and then as we grow, there's a subtler bliss in a bhajan. So even these subtler blisses, we can understand how we engage in them. And having experienced them, we don't like the grosser forms of joy in the world. Like that, the Sthitaprajna is reveling in that divine self. So for them, what is there to desire? There's absolutely nothing to desire. And who is that to desire? There is nobody to desire, because that ego is now false. So in this way, this is the root of who a Sthitaprajna is. So yes, they let go of all desires, meaning those desires based on ignorance, that's all gone, because there is no ignorance. So what desires come? There are desires for the world, desires for the good of the world, to serve the world, desires as per their vasana. They all come, but they know it's for the false world by the false ego. And then they're not interested in thinking that, oh, this is going to satisfy me. because they are reveling in something so sublime and so deep, which is the source of who we are. Now the question is, how can we get there? This is a Sthitaprajna. Seems like such a tall order. How can we get there? Well, in the beginning of life, you know, they in our Shastras, it says that all desires can be grouped into these three desires. They're Lokeshana, Vitteshana, Putreshana. Putreshana means the desire for progeny, for pleasure. Vitteshana means the desire for wealth, power. And Lokeshana means the desire for fame, name and fame. And in the beginning, these desires are very deep in a seeker. They're very, very deep. And it's very hard to just let go of them. So the first point is, if I have to engage in these desires, then do it in a dharmic way. So if I were to engage, let's say there is an attraction for somebody, that's so fine. Do it in the institute of marriage. There's nothing wrong with that. If I want to gain wealth, if I want to be rich, there's nothing wrong with that, but do it in a dharmic means. Do it by dharma, not trying to evade something or trying to cheat something or shortcuts here and there. No, do it in a dharmic way. If I want name and fame, fine, do it in a dharmic way, not by stepping on someone or cheating someone or creating rumors about someone so you can shine. Do it in a dharmic way. Earn it because of your good actions. So if people have these desires, it's okay. It's okay. So point number one, engage in these desires in a dharmic way. Second is to expand the engagement to the community, to society. So the pursuit for wealth should not only be for our own comfort and luxury, but also to give back to society. The name and fame that we gain should not only be because we want to be famous and popular, it's also so that we can do good for society. You know, like how certain stars or artists, they serve as ambassadors, you know, for environmentalism, what such good causes. They serve as ambassadors for that. Or if I have that desire to be in a family unit, fine, but use then your family unit to also serve the community. It should not be that the family is for the family alone. Family also grows and expands to embrace everybody as a family. So the second point is to extend that to society, to community, to the nation. And the third point is, after doing that, and in the second point, with the spirit of Karma Yoga, with whatever we've learned, after doing that for some time, we will see the limitations of the world. We will see that, you know, the desires that we really wanted, they're not being fulfilled in the world. I'm not seeing their fulfillment here. The world's not giving me what I want. This is that vairagya that we talked about. That vairagya will start to come. After this vairagya starts to come, the seeker then says, I must look somewhere else. I must look somewhere else for my fulfillment. And it is then that the seeker turns inward to desire the self. The day that we desire the self, that we desire to realize the self, that is the most glorious day. That is the most glorious thought, because that is what we're here to do. And nobody can force anybody to desire the self. We cannot force this desire. It comes naturally. So if that desire comes to a seeker, that seeker is very blessed and very lucky. Take that desire and nurture it. Nurture it till it grows so much that you almost have to realize the self, because you cannot be without it. And that strong desire for the self leads then to the realization of the self. So for our sadhana, desire to be desireless. It is very ironic if you look at it deeply and think to desire something that we already are. It's the most ironic thing. We already are that. Why are we desiring it? Because we don't know. So the truth is we are already that. But because we think we're not, we have to engage in this desire and engage in it deeply until it sees its fulfillment. So that is our sadhana. Okay? So now this is the mula or the root. Now we're going to go to the next verse. The next verse now is about, now how does a Sthitaprajna speak? Okay, so these verses are very beautiful, very powerful to just keep thinking and reflecting on them. Even one word can really make a change in our lives. So let us read verse number 56. Dukkeshu anudvignamanaha Dukkeshu anudvignamanaha Sukheshu vigatasprahaha Sukheshu vigatasprahaha Vitaragabhaya krodhaha Vitaragabhaya krodhaha Stitadhir muniruchyate Stitadhir muniruchyate Dukkeshvanudvignamanaha Sukheshu vigatasprahaha Vitaragabhaya krodhaha Stitadhir muniruchyate. What is the description how a wise person speaks? Dukkeshu anudvignamanaha, whose mind doesn't get shaken by dukkha, adversity. Sukheshu vigatasprahaha, whose mind doesn't hanker in pleasure. Vitaragabhaya krodhaha, free from attachment, fear, and anger. Sthitadhihi munihi uchyate. This is the sage of steady wisdom. He whose mind is not shaken by adversity, who does not hanker after pleasures, who is free from attachment, fear, and anger, is called a sage of steady wisdom. So in here, in this verse 56, what we will see is equanimity. The quality of a Sthitaprajna is equanimity and free from attachment, free from fear, free from anger. So first, let's look at the first part. Does a wise person have sorrow? Does a Sthitaprajna have sorrow? Yes, a Sthitaprajna has sorrow. Does a Sthitaprajna have joy? Yes, but the difference is the Sthitaprajna does not become sorrowful or does not become joyful. Sorrow, what we, I guess, see as sorrow, right? Because that's also different. What we see as sorrow, let's say an accident, a pandemic, somebody getting hurt. What we see as sorrow, will that come to a Sthitaprajna's life? Yes. What we see as joy, somebody, winning a lottery, or somebody, graduating from college or high school, what we see as joy, will that come? Yes. But they do not become sorrowful or joyful. So first, let's look at sorrow. Sorrow is threefold, as is joy. That is why we say the three shantis, right? The first sorrow is adidaivika. Adidevika means the sorrows of unseen forces. Could be an earthquake, could be a storm, could be a typhoon, a hurricane, all of that could be Adidevik. The second level of sorrow is Adibhautika. Adibhautika, people around us, right? Seen. Now this is seen. So it could be noises in the street, ambulances, police cars in the street, or if we have a neighbor who's having a party and the music is so loud, Adibhautika. And Adhyatmika, the third level then, is going to be sorrows within. The body. Sometimes the body might have aches and pains. Sometimes the mind may go through its own ups and downs. Sometimes the intellect may be so restless, it can't get an answer. So these are what we call the three tapas. And so when we say Shanti 3 times, it's really to seek peace from the Adidevik forces, unseen, Adibhautik forces, the seen, and Adhyatmic forces within. Those troubling forces in these 3 realms, we seek peace so that we can start our study. So will these things come? Yeah, they'll come. They'll come because we live in this world called Jagat. Jagat, it means world. Jayate, it's born. Gacchati, it goes. Tishtati iva, as though it remains. The world is in constant motion. It's constant motion. The earth is in constant motion. Earth is in constant motion. The earth is always, it's rotating. It's rotating. And not only is it rotating on its own axis, it's revolving. It's constantly moving. So there will constantly be all of these things. In the Adidevik level, yes, there will be war, there will be sorrow, there will be the great calamities that are happening around us. We will see there will be deaths in certain families. People are going through, injuries, people getting into accidents. Yes, even a Sthitaprajna site, people close to them will also suffer. Inside, the body's dharma is that, isn't it? It's born, it grows, it decays. It decays also. So when we grow older, yes, the hair will become gray, wrinkles will come in the face, the shoulders, everything will start to sag. Yeah, all of this will be there. All of this will be there. But the difference is that, with a Sthitaprajna, it's not happening to me, the Atman. It's happening to the body, it's happening to the mind, it's happening to the intellect, it's happening to everything. It's not happening to the Atman. The Atman is untouched. So, you see, sorrow for a jnani, Sthitaprajna, is at one level, prarabdha, right? Whatever is the prarabdha, karma of the body, of the world, of all of that, it will come. That's fine. There's absolute understanding about that. There's absolute understanding that this all will come because we live in this world. Have you ever seen a perfect place? There is no family without drama. There is no company without competition. There is no place that has perfect weather. There is no marriage that's free from drama also. There's nothing is perfect. Nothing is absolute pure bliss. Nothing. There is no country without corruption. There's none. There's none. Everything has something in it. So the Sthitaprajna understands that, look, the world is like this. This is the nature of the world. This is the nature of beings. It's like this only. And so they have a very open attitude to accepting prarabdha. This is how it is. You cannot change it. In this world that's constantly moving, revolving, rotating, you cannot find rest. There will not be rest in motion. There will never be rest in motion. There's only rest in Atma. Because Atma is immovable. It's sthita, so steady. It is also sthita. So we'll never find rest in motion. To seek that everything will be perfect, it doesn't work. Everything will keep changing, keep moving, keep doing its thing. So a jnani, Sthitaprajna, accepts this is the way the world is, and there's no point in seeking peace in that. And the second point is that the Sthitaprajna knows it's not happening to me. Whereas for the ignorant, it's happening at two levels, right? The prarabdha karma is coming, but also they're like, why is this happening? Why is this going on? There's this unnecessary question. Why is this happening? What did I do to deserve this? How can this be like that? Why is the world happening like this? There's unnecessary, all of these hankerings, these things. So there's not only prarabdha, but there's aviveka. Aviveka means this ignorance, this not being able to understand and discriminate. The world's nature is change. The world's nature is duality. The world's nature is not peace. So to think that there is world peace, you have to go beyond the world to find that peace. So Sthitaprajna is, okay, accept. And ignorant person will say, why? Why is this happening? So for our sadhana, how does this work? An ignorant person will say, why me? A jnani will say, try me. Try to affect this pure Atman, pure consciousness. You can't touch it. You cannot contact the self. The self is free from it. So sorrows will come as situations to the life of the Sthitaprajna, but the Sthitaprajna will not be disturbed by it because of the maturity of acceptance and of the understanding that the world cannot touch them. Now that is a Sthitaprajna. Very steady, very steady. But what about in joy? What about a joy? Of course, joy comes to Sthitaprajna also if sorrow comes. So joy in the Adi Daivika would be beautiful, beautiful weather, beautiful, maybe the end of a pandemic, the wonderful environment. People around very peaceful, very happy, very soulful. And inside also the condition of the body is so healthy, the mind so peaceful. Yes, this also comes to a Sthitaprajna, but vigataspraha, they're not wanting to continue it. What happens to us ignorant people is that when joy comes, we're saying, I hope you never leave. I hope this doesn't end. I hope this lasts forever. I hope this continues. I hope it continues. This hope, I want it to continue. I want it to last. I want it to extend. That is called spraha, right? You want it. You're like extending it. I wish it lasts forever. Why does it have to end? This jnani doesn't have. Because they know that everything comes in limited time, limited place, limited environment. Everything comes in a limit. There is nothing in the world that's never ending. There's nothing in the world that's never ending. So when some situation comes, some good people come to their lives, they are never like, oh, I hope this person always stays. I hope this always becomes like this. No, because they're setting themselves up for a trap if they do that. It's a trap. Everybody that comes into our life will go. It is a fact. That's why the Sthitaprajna, there is this saying that whatever comes, they welcome it. But at the same time, when it has to go, let it go. Nothing is ours, nothing belongs to us. We cannot hold anything, we cannot keep anything. So there's no spriha, there's no craving that this should last, this should stay. There's no such thing. Because everything has to come to an end. But with an ignorant person, there is this tension. Even if I don't work for it, even if I don't put forth effort, I hope that it lasts. I hope that it remains. It's not going to stay. And so much tension is there in hoping and wanting it to extend. So Vigata Spurha, it's very, very, very calm. Joy comes, okay. Sorrow comes, okay. They're not affected by it. It doesn't touch them. It just comes, it goes. Joy and sorrow will come and go, and they'll do their thing. They come to us every day. They come to us every day. They'll come, they'll do our thing. That's what they do. We don't have to go through them. They can go through us, try to go through us. So we don't have to go through them. Then Vitaragha Bhaya Krodha, without attachment. What is this attachment? So as we saw in the very, very beginning of chapter 1, what is attachment? It is very simple. I plus blank equals fulfillment. I plus blank equals fulfillment. Whatever is in the blank, that's what we're attached to. Because the real formula is I equals fulfillment. That's the real formula. I is fulfillment. Atma is fulfillment. But the minute I think I plus blank is fulfillment, that right there, that's my attachment. And what does attachment bring? Attachment brings sorrow. For sure, it will bring sorrow. From this, it can be attached to anything. We can be attached to a person. We can be attached to a business. We can be attached to an experience. We can be attached to our body. We can be anything that we're attached to. That will give us sorrow. Why? Because that thing that we're attached to, that person that we're attached to, will not always be there. And therefore, what rises from attachment is fear. Fear that this person might go away. This person might leave. This experience might be lost. This company or business might go away from me. One will constantly live in fear. Because deep in your heart, that nothing lasts forever. You know it. And so there's always this fear. What will happen to me? How will I be able to do? How will I be able to live? This constant fear arises from attachment. If I'm feeling fear, I must be attached to something or someone. That is for sure. And from that very, very attachment, anger also comes. Why? Because when something comes in between me and my source of joy, which is my attachment, if something comes in between me and that person, I will get so angry. When we have a person who we really love, who we're very close to in our lives, and we lose them, what happens? If we're attached to them, what happens? We become angry. The first thing that people feel is anger towards God. Why did God take away my child, my partner? Why did God do that? The first thing that arises is anger. Why did that happen? And so then there's constant blame, there's constant disturbance. Our minds are just at unrest. We cannot take it. We're not able to take it. When we very well know from whatever we have studied, when something like death happens, it is not the fault of God, it is the karma of that jiva. That body at that particular time had to come to an end, so it came to an end. But even more so, I became attached to that. What made us think that the person that we love or we care for is just a body? What made us think that? Right? That being is a part of us. It's a part of us. From the highest standpoint, that being is Atma. But even from the transactional standpoint, that being is a part of us. When we are attached to something, we cannot think clearly. We can't think clearly. We say things we don't mean. We do things we don't mean. We do adharma. So from this raga, this attachment, fear rises, anger rises. With this Sthitaprajna, what's the formula? It's not I plus blank equals fulfillment. It's I is fulfillment. That's it. There is no plus anything. So whatever happens, they're steady. They're not depending on somebody else for their happiness. They're not leaning on something else for their happiness. They just are happiness. That's what makes them steady. That's a steady sage. So now what is our sadhana for this? Our sadhana for this is number one, to be accepting of life. Understand that this world is full of dualities, full of change in all levels, as we've seen. And that there's no perfect place, there's no perfect time. Our sadhana is acceptance, that everybody will behave according to their prakriti, according to their nature. We cannot change that. And the second sadhana is being able to accept whatever comes and let go whatever has to go, without wanting to hold on to it. Whatever comes, let it come. Enjoy it. Revel in it. Nobody said don't enjoy. Enjoy it fully. But when it has to go, let it go fully. Let it go fully. Because that's the nature of the world. You cannot fight the nature of the world. You will lose. We lose all the time. You just surrender to it. And the third sadhana is, instead of being attached to somebody or someone, learn ways to be independently joyous. Learn ways to independently fuel ourselves with joy. It might not be Atma yet. That's okay. But as long as even we can get to that, where we are independently joyous, and we can be even without other people. At least these things we can apply into our lives. Okay? So today we have seen that the Sthitaprajna is able to be desireless because they revel in the self. But even if they're truly desireless of the world, because they revel in the bliss of the selves, they have desires. Who has desires? The body, the mind, the intellect, because they will constantly have desires. But they are false desires for the false world, for the false ego. And those desires are not arising out of a sense of incompleteness or ignorance. They're rising out of fulfillment, and they're rising because these things just have to do what they do. And the second point we saw today was the Sthitaprajna is equanimous, doesn't get so disturbed by sorrow, doesn't get so elated by joy, and is free from anger, from attachment, from fear. All right? So today we'll stop here and we'll take the next verses, the next class. And those who want to stay back to ask any questions or if anyone has any comments, please feel free to stay back. Om Purnamadaः Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.